Right. My name is Isabel Becker. Today is April 21st, 2021. It is 3:30 p.m. Currently in the US, there are 31,602,676 total cases, and there are 565,613 deaths. In Wisconsin, there are 592,262 cases and 6,721 total deaths. In Minnesota, there are 558,850 total cases with 7,044 deaths. Currently, the 26% of the US is fully vaccinated. Um, could you state your name and then do you mind sharing some demographic information such as race, ethnicity, age, and gender?
Yep. My name is Pacha, and I'm Hmong American. I am 18 years old, and I identify as a cis female.
Great. So where are you living right now?
I am living up in Minneapolis. I go to the University of Minnesota. Yeah.
Right. What are the primary things that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Usually, I go to class online, have food. And I also do some of my hobbies, which is just like listening to music and doodling and just talking to my roommate.
And so what is it like living in Minneapolis right now and going to the U of M?
Um, it's definitely just with the past events that happened, especially with the George Floyd trial. Things were getting kind of hectic, and you could see the National Guard and everything. But for the most part, it's been pretty well. I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood, and yeah, things are pretty all right up here.
Yeah. When you first learned about COVID-19, what were your thoughts on it and how have they changed since then?
Initially, when I first heard about COVID-19, I just kind of thought that it would go away and that it wasn't a big problem. But as time went on, I've realized how serious the COVID-19 is, especially with just my grandparents and my relatives who are immunodeficient. So compared to now, I think I was definitely less concerned about how COVID-19 would affect, I guess, just everyone in general. But now I am pretty concerned, I guess.
Yeah.
Fair.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about your concerns?
Sure. I guess it's really great that 26%, I believe, right, are of people are adults in America are fully vaccinated. I have been watching the news though, and I've noticed that there are a lot of like racial disparities among like just vaccines, and most people can make appointments online, but some people don't even have access to like the internet, or some people don't even have a phone. So it might be harder for them to actually get the vaccine, although it's available to all adults now.
What issues have most concerned you about the COVID-19 pandemic?
I think one issue in particular is probably just like mental health. In the beginning of COVID-19, I worked at a long-term care facility in a nursing home. And I've noticed that working with the residents, they became more lonely as they were more isolated. They were very frustrated, and they just didn't understand what was going on most of the time. And that was pretty concerning. And then you also had like Donald Trump, for example, say that like China was the root of all of the problems, and that in that manner, like I did actually receive some like racist slurs in that long-term facility because of the information they were given about COVID-19 through watching the news. But again, like I think that loneliness and just mental health in general is a really big problem in terms of COVID-19. And yeah.
Um, so if you're okay with talking about it, I'm really sorry to hear that you encountered some racism because of this. Are you willing to talk more about that?
Yeah, I guess like there are people who like have fought in the war and there are some certain prejudices, but I do think that the idea that let's say this illness that is causing everyone to become isolated and for people to not see their families anymore be pinpointed on like a certain group and certain demographic, like Asian people, for example, like definitely like I can see where the residents are coming from, or those certain residents that have discriminated me. However, it's just pretty upsetting at the same time because I don't think any of that should be put on one community, you know?
Yeah. So are you still working there or not?
I am not working there anymore since I've moved up to Minneapolis.
How has your schooling been affected during the pandemic?
Um, I would have to say it has been kind of a roller coaster. Um, I would say that I did pretty well, like in person for the most part. But after transitioning to going online, it's changed so many things. I've had to learn a lot of things about just like time management in general. And I feel like I've almost experienced like a burnout, like my first semester of college, because there was so much to do in so little time. And yeah.
Um, were you, so you just recently moved to Minneapolis? So you did classes online from home for your first semester?
Yes.
How was that transition to college while still being at home and then moving to Minneapolis during this pandemic?
Yeah, so initially the first semester was kind of hard. It didn't even feel like I was going to college at that point because I was with my family. I also had to help like my youngest brother do Zoom as well. It was pretty hectic and it didn't really feel like I was going to college. The transition was actually probably the hardest part because I didn't know what kind of course load I was going to get because it's my first year at college. I didn't know how it was going to be like. Um, However, my second semester, I moved up here and it was a little easier because I could prioritize more time for myself. Um, it's still a little hard though, because I feel like communication is better when you're in person with a professor or a TA, or even like your peers, and you can discuss like a problem you don't understand. There are like group chats and stuff, and they are beneficial, but when you have like 80 or 100 people in them, it can get pretty hectic, and not everyone's answer is going to be I mean, not everyone's question is going to be answered.
And the transition from moving from Winona to Minneapolis, how was that?
It was pretty intense. I Winona is a really small town and you can drive in it pretty easily, but when it came up to Minneapolis, it was kind of hectic because I was learning how to drive in a really busy city and it was kind of intense, but I like it. I like the city life and yeah.
Were there any differences you noticed with how the pandemic is addressed going from a small town to a big city?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting actually. I guess college wise, in general, uh, I feel like they both kind of handled it in the same way. Um, the protocols were kind of the same. I will have to say though, I do know some people who still go to like college in Winona, and the vaccine was more available to students in Winona rather than in a big city like Minneapolis, because they were able to actually have those resources for those students instead of the students up here, like in a more efficient manner, I guess.
So have you received any doses of the vaccine?
I have, I got my first dose, I believe, like a couple, no. I can't remember, but a couple weeks ago, and I'm getting my second dose on Friday.
Did you experience any side effects with it?
I didn't experience any side effects except for just like a sore arm for like one day.
Do you or anyone you know have or had any questions or concerns related to the vaccine?
Um, I Not that I know in particular. I think that maybe my grandparents do. Probably. I think they're mostly just concerned that they'll actually get COVID after getting the vaccine because it's kind of like the flu, but I think that was their only concern.
Um, and so what was your experience getting vaccinated and with getting access to information about the vaccine?
Yeah, so my experience was pretty positive. I'm pretty privileged to have internet and a phone. And I also volunteer at the clinic, um, at one of the COVID vaccine clinics. So I was able to actually get my vaccine there. So I had a pretty easy access to information and the vaccine because of those things.
And have you or anyone else you know gotten sick during the pandemic?
Do you mean like caught COVID or just in
Yes, yeah.
general? Not that I know of, but yeah, I don't know anyone who's actually gotten COVID.
Um, and how do you see the people around you responding to the pandemic?
Um, I, in my close circle, I think everyone's pretty following the protocols pretty safely. If I go into town, I definitely see people not wearing masks and partying and everything. But I think it really depends because in one block you can see like maybe two people wearing a mask, but then on that very same block you can see like three other people not wearing a mask. So I think it depends. But yeah.
Have you seen people around you change their opinions, day-to-day activities, or relationships in response to the pandemic?
I would say yes. I know that some of my friends like don't meet up as much as they would because of the pandemic, or um, some people will change the scenery and like where they meet up, so they can be like 6 feet apart. So yeah.
And what have you and your family and your friends done for recreation during the pandemic?
Mm, that's a hard one. We mostly, my family and I, we mostly just go outside and just hang out in our backyard or like walk around our park. My friends and I, we still meet outside as well. There hasn't been like too much, I guess, recreational fun, except for just going outside.
Um, so how are you managing day-to-day activities in your household?
Yeah, so my roommate and I have like a schedule, for example, to do cleaning duties like every month. Um, we kind of just communicate in that sense for some of our cleaning duties, for example. I also just have like a schedule that I have to complete certain things throughout the day to make sure that I'm on the right track for school.
Um, what have been your primary sources for news during the pandemic?
Yeah. So on my phone, actually, I can see the news if I go to the homepage. So I get my news usually from there. I usually also get news from like social media and like maybe like one day I want to go on YouTube and I actually still see some news on there as well. So it's basically everything on like my phone, I guess, is where I get my news.
Has it changed how you've gotten your news at all?
Like, uh, what do you
Um, like the sources you use to look at, has that changed at all during the pandemic?
Okay. I yeah, I will have to say I do fact check more because I feel like news, especially on like social media, I don't necessarily know where that's coming from. I still usually get my news from relatively the same source, like um CNN or like other channels like that. But yeah.
How have you been fact checking?
Um I believe there's a fact checker online. I can't exactly remember the name, but I do look at that one.
Do you think there are important issues that the media is or maybe is not covering?
Um, I feel like, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I always feel like there's something like in like the big picture and like everyone has to hear about this one thing, but I feel like there are also just like so many problems in this world and I don't know how each problem can be addressed all at once. Um, like, for example, like right now, COVID-19, right? I think that that's a pretty big issue. But I've been watching this TV show called Escaping Polygamy, for example. And like, I don't think that's been on the news since like couple years ago. So there's a lot of different things going on, and I do think that there's usually just one big focus a lot of the time.
Have you been watching a lot of shows like that, the escaping polygamy, during this pandemic?
Yeah, I find them really interesting and just educational in general to just learn about what's been actually going on in America. Yeah.
Is that something that you used to do before the pandemic as well, or is it really started recently?
I think that I did start before the pandemic, but I think it's like grown and I've kind of like had a variety now of what I actually watch and what kind of things I'm learning about.
Um, so with the pandemic, there's a lot of talk about self-isolation and flattening the curve as ways to help the situation. Have you done any of that?
Yeah, I will have to say I don't really see anyone at all. And I usually just stay in my room. Um, I usually just like video call my friends and like I don't like go out as much. Like I don't go to the store unless I need to for groceries. Um, Also with my family, like I don't see them like all the time. I usually just video call them just to make sure everyone's safe. And,
Um, so how has COVID kind of changed your relationship with your family and friends and your community in general?
yeah, I definitely feel like I'm not able to have the same connection with my friends and family as much because I am so self-isolated. Like I feel like there is this spark that just happens when you're with someone in person, and it's different from seeing them like on a video call, you know. I don't think it has changed a lot though. Like, I still love my family and they still love me. So it's not a lot, but it's still like, oh, I miss your presence, you know?
Um, so how do you think municipal leaders and government officials in your community responded to the outbreak? How have they responded?
Yeah. So Minneapolis in particular, I believe that Tim Walz, our governor, has like put on restrictions in the beginning. They were for a couple of months, I believe. I can't exactly remember. Um, I think that nowadays they're kind of like lifting them up because people are getting the vaccine. A lot of people have access to it now. Our my college in general have been like changing up like social distancing, like well, not changing the guidelines, but it in initiating the guidelines for social distancing, and just making sure that there's like a curfew. When we first started in the first semester, there were like definitely curfews for students because of COVID-19 and other things like that.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit more about those curfews?
Yeah, I wasn't up here the first semester, but I have heard from my friends that it was kind of crazy. Some people actually didn't even follow the curfew guidelines, and I definitely do think that that probably just affected everyone else's safety. Um, but they did say that it was pretty hectic. But for the most part, it was pretty relaxed after the curfew was extended. Oh, well, not extended, but they had a later curfew in the end. But
Was that for the whole city or just for your campus?
it was just for my campus, I believe.
How did they enforce the curfew?
I believe that they had the RAs in like the dorms kind of like watch out for like people who were going and just kind of enforce that curfew. I'm not particularly like sure, but like they also like sent emails to students.
Do you have any thoughts on how local, state, or federal leaders are responding to the crisis differently?
Yeah, I do think that it's kind of odd. I did hear that like Texas like basically had their mask like wearing protocol lifted. I can't exactly remember, but I think that it's pretty crazy how some states just differ from one another, especially when it has to deal with like just people's safety in general and the community's safety and health. Yeah.
Yeah. So how has the pandemic affected your travel with these guidelines and the different things that states and cities are doing?
Yeah, I remember I believe like my family didn't travel to Wisconsin like at all during this time. Like we just stayed in Minnesota like for the very first weeks because it was said like Wisconsin had a lot of cases and like we didn't know what to do. So we just basically stayed in town and didn't go out. We only used our car to go get groceries or things like that. But yeah.
So Winona is right on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin. So how did, living just across from the river from Wisconsin, what was that like with the different state uh, responses?
Yeah, it was honestly a bit concerning. Like, you don't know who's from Wisconsin or who's from Minnesota when you're wearing a mask. And I guess I was just kind of concerned for the most part about everyone's safety, um, because you just don't know who's actually from like Wisconsin with more COVID cases, or who's not, or who's practicing COVID-19 protocols. Yeah.
So you were a senior in high school last year during this pandemic. Um, how did that kind of affect your life?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was pretty sad when it first started, because I was gonna get to go to like Big Nine and play in like select band, and I had a lot of different other ambitions that I wanted to fulfill, I guess. By the end, I didn't get the graduation that I wanted, I guess. But I think that our school really made the best out of it for everyone, and they were pretty flexible in the way that they delivered, like, just education, and how they made my senior year kind of feel like a good closing experience. But I definitely do think, like, it was kind of sad not being able to see my friends who might not be able to see anymore. But yeah.
What kind of things did the school do?
Um, so although it wasn't the graduation I wanted, we did have like kind of a drive-by graduation. We were still able to walk down and receive our diploma, and I actually was able to give a speech still that was recorded. Um, I think that it was pretty nice, because when we were driving by, there were people with signs and balloons and everything, and there was music playing. So it was pretty nice to be celebrated for that day.
So you mentioned that you were in band last year. I was wondering if you want to talk a little more about the clubs you're involved with in, and if you've joined any in college.
Yeah. So when I was a senior in high school, or just my high school career in general, I was a part of like band, for example. I was also part of orchestra a little bit, and the jazz band. I think that those are probably my big main ones. I was also a part of a nonprofit group that helped businesses in Nigeria. And I was also a part of the National Honor Society, and I served as the vice president for that. Um, I was also in the Spanish Honor Society, and we kind of just spread the culture of Spanish speaking people throughout our school. Um, I was in student council for a little bit, and I also did soccer for a little bit. So I was kind of doing a lot of stuff, but it was a lot of fun. Um, but now I joined a public health group, actually. Um, we have boards coming up, and I'm actually running for one of the positions. And I also joined the pre-med group at the U of M. And from that, I was able to get a medical student mentor. And for now, that's all I'm involved in. But yeah.
So how did the pandemic affect what you're able to do with those groups? Both like at the end of your high school career and then now in college?
It did cut off right in the beginning. So could you repeat what you said?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
So how has the pandemic affected what you're able to do with those clubs and groups, both at the end of high school and then now in college?
Yeah, 100%. So like I was able to like volunteer a lot for like the National Honor Society because we could do things in person. When COVID-19 came around, we weren't able to volunteer anymore. Even like my first semester of college, like I wasn't even really able to do anything except like go to meetings, and those meetings were mostly like educational based, which was really nice, may I say. But like um, the pre-med group, for example, does a lot of volunteering, but we definitely were not able to volunteer our first semester of college as much as you would when you were in person. I also feel like going to college now, I wasn't able to make as many friends as I did from like clubs in high school where I can meet different people and stuff. I think it's just a little harder making friends over Zoom than actually being able to see people face to face.
What kind of volunteering were you able to do?
So I wasn't, you mean for this year?
Yeah, you were talking about how you weren't able to volunteer as much as you would normally with your
Yeah, okay. So with the group, we weren't able to volunteer at all until like our spring semester now. There were a lot of like drive, not drive-bys, but like where you could drive and like deliver food to people. That would be one volunteering experience. And then I also am volunteering at the Due Nord Foundation at their community market, where I just pack food items for people who order them. And I also volunteer at the vaccine clinic as just like a greeter and observer, and make sure people are doing okay before they get their vaccine.
how long and how often have you been volunteering at the vaccine clinic?
I've only done it like once a week for like the past like 2 or 3 weeks. So it's not that long. I just found out about it from the pre-med club, and then I signed up for it like a week later. And yeah.
Um, so has your experience with the pandemic transformed how you think about your family, friends, and community?
Yeah. I definitely do feel like now I appreciate my family a lot more than I did before. It's kind of crazy how I guess isolating everything is, and all you have left is your family in your house. I definitely have grown to appreciate them, even if we don't have the best of days sometimes. I think I've grown to appreciate the people in my household and what they do for me, and the connections that I get with them. Um, I also appreciate my friendships more, because not being able to see someone in person definitely just makes me sad. Maybe the other party sad as well. I think I appreciate just human connection a lot more in general because of COVID-19.
Um, what were the biggest or what have been the biggest challenges that you've faced during the pandemic?
Um, I think one of the biggest ones that I've experienced is probably just burnout. I think after coming from like a really accelerated like well-rounded high school career and going to college for the first time, I experienced burnout and how much like time I was giving the people and how much time I was actually giving myself. I just experienced like feeling, I guess, empty in a way, like low fuel, just not having motivation to do anything. That was probably my biggest struggle. Um, Also, just again, just isolation in general. Um, I I I think I'm an extroverted person and I gain my energy from being with people. So it was kind of sad. And I think I definitely felt really isolated from everyone during the quarantine, especially because I get my energy from being around other people.
Oh, what sort of things have you done to try to help with that?
Yeah, again, like I usually just try to video call people, but everyone is so busy all the time. And it's hard to find a time where everyone's free to call or do anything of that sort. But I try to go outside actually. I think that being outside in the sun actually makes me feel just a little happier and warmer. um, but other than that, I think that at least spending time with my family has helped, or spending time with my roommate now has helped. Mm.
Knowing what you know now, what do you think that individuals, communities, or governments need to keep in mind for the future?
Mm. I think that I think what everyone, like individuals, just people in general, and like the community needs to know is that we can't rely on one person to fix a problem because I think often like in America, especially like we usually look to the president to fix things or make things better. But I think it's more than one person. It takes a whole community to actually get something done. And if you just rely on one person, it nothing's going to get done because everyone needs to be working towards the same goal to make sure that everyone is okay.
Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you think would be a good thing to bring up?
Um, I I think I just wanted to add in that I think social media has played a really big role during quarantine and just COVID-19 in general. I began to like see like a lot of people post about the news and post about like different things the CDC has said. I think that being able to have like a community of just staying informed and having someone just like post like a positive, like happy thing for people to see every day is really nice. Although there are a lot of cons of social media as well, I think that it can also bring a lot of people together and keep people informed about what's going on in the world.
How has it affected your social media use?
Yeah, um, I think like I usually went on social media just to check on how people are doing and everything, but now strangely I go onto social media just to like check up with like the news. A lot of people that I've met at the U, like they are the most like informed people that you'll ever meet, and it's pretty nice to see what's actually going on today.
Well, thank you so much for doing this oral history. I'm going to end the recording right now.